As a little girl, my favorite way of getting ready for school was, well, not at all. But my second favorite was putting on as much sunscreen as possible. Even in the winter, I did not go easy on that SPF. And no one at school ever questioned it. At home, my mom just assumed that I was taking really good care of my skin. And mind you, I am glowing now. But the real reason I did it was so that I could feel like I was fitting in with my classmates. I went to a private Catholic school where the majority of everybody had white skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. Not at all. The problem came up when I was putting sunscreen on every day because the other kids decided that I was too dark to hang out with. In fact, some of the other kids believed I was black. And who could mistake this brown awesomeness? Let's today take a look at the issues of skin color, then explore the term colorism before finally just concluding its real-world implications. Now, skin color is basically an evolutionary advantage, as my sociology teacher explained to us one day. An evolutionary advantage? I had to find out more. Basically, our early ancestors and early humans began to shed their hair and increase in sweat glands when they lived in the sunnier places. But without all of this hair, they needed some protection from the sun, and in came evolution. They naturally adapted into darker skin tones because of melanin. Now, melanin is a brown pigment that absorbs ultraviolet radiation and neutralizes its harmful effects on the body. Now, evolution usually tends to favor adaptations that are increasing in reproductive abilities. So while melanin was blocking harmful UV rays, it was also protecting human skin from the ultraviolet radiation because it harmed folate. Folate is essentially a vitamin that helps you with conception, and it reduces the risks of birth defects during the first month of pregnancy. However, while UV rays have their negatives, they also have their positives. When they enter the skin, it helps the skin with vitamin D, which can help you absorb calcium for healthier bones and immunity. Something else that can be helpful with reproduction. Now, in order to have a balance with these two things, the humans that moved to the less sunny regions of the world adapted into light skin so that the little sun they did get would come in with that UV to help with their vitamin D. So now that we know this, let's move on to what colorism is. Some of you may not have heard of it, but let's focus on that word, color. Colorism was first coined by Alice Walker in the 1950s. She claimed that while racism is a pretty good word to sum up all of the issues revolving how people look, race is just a classification. It's an idea. But skin color is visual fact. No matter what, people are going to see your skin color, even if your race itself is ambiguous. Now, colorism is important because essentially what it means is a preference for lighter skinned people. And colorism is deeply rooted in everybody, whether or not they are actually racist. Let's take some examples. In employment, several studies have shown that two candidates, let's say they're both black, apply for the same job and they interview for it. More often than not, the lighter skinned employee was hired. And even in entertainment and movies, the lighter skinned actors are much more likely to get the roles than their darker skinned counterparts. Take, for example, the HBO Max original Euphoria. It has many groundbreaking characters that face challenging subjects. Among them is a black teenage girl who is also a member of the LGBTQ community, who is played by Zendaya. However, no shade to my girl Zendaya, but she's only half black. They wouldn't look at other black teenage girls, and in the show, other black teenage girls are virtually non existent. But what about children's TV? A study by CNN in 2010 had several children, including African American children, take a look at images of cartoon characters. All they had to do was decide who was the good guy and who was the bad guy. Even the African American children associated the good guys with having lighter skin, and the darker skinned characters were thought to be the bad guys. But where does all of this come from? It certainly didn't come from millennia ago, because what's wrong with your skin protecting you from the sun? The answer can actually be found only centuries ago, with white slave owners and colonizers. Now, white slave owners associated light skin with purity and sophistication. So their lighter skinned slaves were allowed to do tasks indoors, but the darker skinned slaves faced grueling work in the fields day in and day out. And that mentality, for whatever reason, has stayed and remained and been deeply enrooted in the mindsets of everybody, no matter what their race. These sorts of prejudices, whether or not they are intentional, can happen to just about anybody. And that is a problem. It's a problem when somebody who is just as qualified gets turned down for a job just because they are darker. And it's a problem when little girls have to splatter their faces with sunscreen because some little kid called them black. There's nothing wrong with being white, and there's nothing wrong with being black. The thing that needs to be understood is that it's just skin color. It's just an evolutionary advantage from our ancestors. And as many historians and anthropologists believe, all of our ancestors came from the same place. So now that I know this, I certainly won't splatter my face with sunscreen every day, and I don't do that anymore. And I'll only wear sunscreen on the hot, sunny days, and not to feel like I have to fit in with my lighter skinned friends, but because now I want to protect my skin. Because guess what? It's mine. Thank you.